Hey, boys and girls. What we're going to go ahead and look at right here is we're going to look at some graphic data that's going to talk a bit about the black-footed ferret population and all of those case studies or those field journals that were reported out, kind of showing some information that might have had an effect on the ferret population. Well, we're going to look at the actual data and see if that reflects correctly or not. So in this first graph right here, what we're looking at is the black-footed ferret numbers begin to decline. And sorry, I was pulling up my pen here. So we're looking at right here is where the black-footed numbers begin to decline. And so that's showing us this is the spot in the end of March, beginning of April. Well, if we're looking, this is the pollution levels of the environment for this area. And so we watched pollution levels increase. Definitely, they peaked in this region, but then they also decreased down here right when we saw the ferret population decrease. So I'm not positive, and there's a little dip down right here too, so it's not very high, those pollution levels. So I don't think that there's much correlation here, meaning that I don't believe that the ferret population's decline, which began right now, had anything to do with the pollution levels. We can see that they're not particularly high at that point, so I'm not so sure that that proves much evidence for that. So we're going to go ahead and see if um, what the evidence is for our next case. Here we go. Our next graph is going to show us the owl population, and we know that owls are definitely a predator of the black-footed ferret. So we watch this line right here. This is the time that we saw those numbers decline, end of March, beginning of April, and we look at the population size of the owls, and we do see this downward dip right after the black-footed ferret numbers decline. Sorry, there was a fly. And so, once again, I'm not positive that a decline in the owl population would be very indicative or proof for the decline in our black-footed ferret population. They just don't seem to align with one another. So let's go ahead and look at the next piece of evidence. Our next piece of evidence is talking about the eagle population. And no doubt that eagles are they do eat black-footed ferrets, so they are a predator of the black-footed ferret, and so they could have some pressures on that population if they were overeating them or something, or their population was really big and there were so many of them that they needed more food, so they were eating more of the black-footed ferrets. So here we go. We're going to look at, once again, here's this trend line showing us not a whole lot of change in the eagle population, but right here, once again, where that ferret population began to decline, maybe we see even a slight decline in the eagle population, but definitely I don't see any peak coming up here indicating that more eagles had some sort of pressure on the ferret population. So I'm not sure that the eagle population really had any great impact on this decline of the black-footed ferret. Let's go ahead and check out our next graph. Average daily temperatures. Hey, we get visitors. So the average daily temperatures right here are showing we're getting these highs and these lows. It's going woo all over the place. So once again, let's center ourselves on this decline in our ferret population. We see right here is when the ferret population declined. It began. Before that, there was this real dip down. It got really stinking cold right before the ferret population declined. So, could that possibly have had some effect on the success of the population? We're looking at -5 degrees. Maybe that -5 degrees had some sort of impact, because if it's really cold and these ferrets are coming out and trying to find food, maybe they're not able to find food because it's too stinking cold, and this temperature has kind of gone all up and down and crazy. So this possibly could be some good evidence for showing one kind of abiotic effect on the population of our prairie, or our, sorry, not prairie dogs, our what's the word I'm looking for? Black-footed ferrets. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the last piece of evidence here. And this last piece of evidence is showing us the prairie dog population size. So once again, boom, we've got our black-footed ferret numbers declining right here at the end of March, beginning of April, right there. And then this is our trend line for the population of our prairie dogs. And what do you notice about the two? Well, for me, they seem to correlate. There is this massive decline that begins right here. But in particular, it starts right before. Do you see that? Right before the population is affected, you see this boom, decline. And that's a food source. Prairie dogs are the number one food source of our black-footed ferret. So you take away the food source, well, what's going to happen to the predator that eats it? He's not going to have food. So he's also going to decline and starve to death. And so I think that this right here is a really good indicator, this of showing some sort of effect on our our black-footed ferret numbers declining, is the decline in our prairie dog population. This graphic data compared to any of these other graphs, maybe this one could show some relationship, but I don't see any other clear relationship or trend really happening in any of these other graphs. I think graphically speaking, this is the best definition and explanation for the decline in our ferret population. So your job now is to explain this data to me. You need to write out and explain how it is you know that the prairie dog population has the greatest impact on the black-footed ferret population, how their decline has had the greatest impact. Graphically speaking, it seems to have the best relationship there. So you're going to look at your graphs on your own. You can rewatch this video and you're going to come up with your own explanation for that reasoning. Good luck. Email me with any questions.